G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 12th of August 2026. Did I say April the other day? I think I said the wrong date the other day. I'm not sure if it was yesterday or the day before. I do apologise if I did. I can't remember which one someone said, but anyhow, I did not purposely mislead anyone on the dates. However, sometimes the map does actually have old information on them. That's another reason why I skip a lot of the markers. I do try to check them all. A lot of the time the map has a day ago, a day ago, a day ago. Some of them are after the show and some of them are just sitting there and they are 2 or 3 days old. I try to remember this map as much as possible so I can bring you the accurate news every day. And the updates are getting thinner again. And that is because there are more intense battles, but in less places. So as the war continues, I'll continue bringing you as accurate as updates as humanly possible, given the propensity for both Ukraine and Russia to lie about their achievements or leave their long-standing achievements and bring them up over and over again, and, of course, pave over all their mistakes. And the biggest, of course, as you know, the controversy still goes on about the Ukrainian leader bringing up the wrong numbers. And he hasn't apologised, and he'll never apologise to the families of the victims who have not got answers what's happened to their missing brothers, fathers, and sons. We all know it's happened to them. And we do know some of them did get captured by Russia, and Ukraine refuses to have the handovers. So people are waiting, expecting their loved ones to come home, and they're not. They're having demobilizations again cancelled as winter comes. And they've put wounded into driving trucks and other work instead of discharging them. So when it comes to the cruelty of war, don't tell me how cruel the Russians are. They're not our side. We have to police our side first. You cannot prosecute war crimes if you are committing them. You have still somewhat a moral code still in the legal system. I know selective prosecutions are occurring all the time, like the political persecution of Donald Trump. But for now, even the European Court of International Crimes is not taking, or they are taking, lip service to Ukraine's complaints. And I'm not going to bring them up because the Ukraine complains about war crimes every day. And most of them are fruitless. They are not worth talking about. There are so many things about this war not worth talking about. The left will either ignore them, glaze over them, or the media will just say, but Russia. So there is no fixing this problem until we get rid of the butt-ugly liberal establishment, start holding the bureaucracy accountable, and start... But the reality is, it's the economic right as well. War is profitable. Investors make money. Society bears the bill, not all the time. And you complain about the millionaires and billionaires. How about you complain about the multi-billion-dollar industries that the Uni Party fosters at every election? And as I think it was George Carlin said, at some point you've got to consider the voter. No matter how many times we point things out to the voter, they vote for whatever cheese and whatever, fancy cheese is on offer in the mousetrap. And your demise is profitable, whether it's organs, drugs, prostitution, your ass, your kids, your work, your land, your morals are sold out every day, and the left always put profit first. The left always put the state above the people. They're just more, I suppose, fancy with the slogans. And we've tried alternatives throughout history, and we've always come back to capitalism as the least damage. Because if a business does damage, the business goes bankrupt, so they're less likely to take risks. But governments and for-profit war industries don't suffer consequences. If they're blown up, they get rebuilt. Everything is at your expense. Because the voter will never stop voting for free cheese, even though they know it's a mousetrap. Ukrainians are complaining, but they don't do anything. They protest, knowing their protests are neither going to be broadcast, that the Europeans are going to ignore them. They lodge complaints with the European courts, knowing the courts are going to dismiss everything without merit. And there's no appeal when a judge stamps that without merit on your complaint, and no one reads them. The general public, you can put up a YouTube, you can try to go to the general public, and they will just yawn at you. There's no point in trying to save society anymore, because the vast majority want to destroy everything because they think the cheese is going to grow out of the mold and misery of the collapse. And their justification is, well, look what happened after the collapse of Greeks. We got democracy. We had 554 years of dark ages was so-called justified by, but we got democracy. Oh, we got progress. No, we had progress. You destroyed progress. Imagine if the steam engine was invented 2,000 years ago. Wait, it was. But the liberal establishment destroyed it in favour of their slavery. So we would have had the steam engine 2,000 years sooner, which by all technological progression, everything else would have been also 2,000 years sooner. So all this war development is, every year of war is a year of development we do not get. And remember, the Dark Ages were hundreds of years of wars. And look at Africa, thousands of years of war. Look at China, thousands of years of war. They say, oh, but look at the civilization now. And no, they only have civilization because of the West. Ukraine is only civilized because a group of German knights decided to go stop the, Mongols, the Mongols at Castle Kiev. They built a castle. There were no people there. The Slavs were pushed into Western Europe, technically Central Europe now, but yeah, the Slavs were pushed into that region where everyone was pushed back. If you don't push back and defend civilization, yeah, that's another problem. The West won't defend itself. It won't defend its values. And they're trying to replace Christianity with liberalism. So at some point you have to declare liberalism, unionism, as just, if you can't have Christianity in government, then you can't have a union. You can't have liberalism. And I know this is going to upset a lot of people and tune people out. I've stopped caring what other people think because they don't give me the time of day. They don't watch my entire video. They don't debate with honest judgment. No, they try to humiliate me because they want others to say, well, I'm not going to touch Dave because I'll just spark the fanatic. So because of the general cowardice of the population who won't stand up to the liberal fanatics, We have the Ukraine war. And the general public are so ashamed of themselves, all they do is sit there and watch sports. Bread and circus. The Romans called it. They called their own demise. They predicted their own demise. You do know that, right? The Romans predicted their own demise. Just like the founders depicted the demise of America. The moment you stop valuing the values that created America, you have destroyed America. You were told to stop importing people, and you didn't. You wanted to be charitable. Yeah, but with other people's money because you were jealous of rich people. And Ukraine is that jealousy. Ukraine represents those jealousy. That's why they identify with so much with Ukraine. Ukraine is jealous of Russia. Remember, Ukraine had the revolution. Ukraine was leading the way was feeding and supporting the Soviet Union. Ukraine had the factories. After World War II, after Stalin, with the demobilization, hundreds of factories across Russia never reopened. All those tank factories, Stalin sat on them for 20 years. It was Eastern Europe that was building everything. And they want that again. They want to be that hub of the Soviet Union. They want to be the wild berries of Europe. They are jealous. And they created a war so they could destroy Russia, backed by their war profiteers in England. And because society has no morality, they only view everything through the lens of team sport. No, workers' rights. Yeah, team sport. But the majority of people are just football hooligans. If they don't get their way, they turn to violence. That's why they complain about police. Where? The police brutality. No, you're a violent felon and you get everything you deserve. Heck, if I was dictator, free AK-47s for everyone. You shoot someone, go to the police station, fill in a form, go to court, and justify your actions. That's it. Police truncheons, steel bars, cross the border. If you're not shot, 10 years prison. Don't care who you are. Drug smugglers, caught with drugs, executed. No arrest, executed. You are so busy defending freedom from tyranny that you don't even know what freedom is. You are actually defending tyranny. You are defending criminality to oppress you. And if you don't understand this, you will end up with a state like Ukraine. How many wars has Ukraine had? How many of them have been brushed aside? The monuments bulldozed over. How many revolutions have they had? And again, the graves get paved over. The history books stop getting taught. And a couple of, the genocides. Yeah, you ask your average DSA member how they feel about genocide. They love it. Oh, yeah, sure. Tell them you're going to execute all the MAGA or all the Christians. Why you forgive? So that's Ukraine. That's why they love Ukraine. They know Ukraine's history is evil. They love evil. They are evil people. Because they believe freedom is evil, and evil is freedom. For freedom to be evil. That is liberalism. People don't get it. God, no, but I'm a classical liberal, blah, blah, blah. Classical liberal and liberalism are not the same thing. It's like saying liberalism and libertarianism. No, liberalism is one of those, shall we say, it's like socialism. Liberalism, communism, they have brands. They're just labels. They're meaningless because all the meanings are propaganda from the very beginning. Ukraine is one of the most propagandized states on the planet right now. They lie about their economy just like China and Russia. They're not different. They are not different from each other. That's the biggest mistake people make, is that they pick a side in a war in which we should be supporting neither side. No, I'm not saying the founders were perfect, but they did realize, the founders of America realized absolutely, if they get entangled in foreign wars, they get dragged down with foreign failures. They looked at everything as a pragmatic view that war is antithetical to business, that the short-term profit of war destroys the long-term viability of the economy. Ukraine did at least recognize that they needed to bring the war to an end within 40 days or they crossed the Rubicon. And what is the Rubicon that they cross? The gulf of how do they pay their $90 billion in overdraft? Well, they won't. They can't. Their GDP will not has fallen that far. Right now, their GDP is propped up by foreign aid. It's like Africa. You take away the foreign aid, man, but you ask the average, well, not really the average, the above average African economist, and they'll tell you aid created addiction, particularly in the era of AIDS and famine. And they never tell you, right? While there was famine in Africa, Ukraine had a massive bumper of grain. And the West bought that grain, $3 billion a year, and sent that to Africa. What did it do? Created overpopulation. Did it stop anything? No. Did it stop poverty? No. The economists in Africa don't want Western aid anymore. But their voice is meaningless in the face of the for-profit industry that is foreign aid. And the influencing peddling operations, that is Georgetown University and all the others who have huge financial interests in perpetuating the influence aid economy. And Ukraine, well, it wants that so desperately, but not desperate enough to end the war. Because they think, oh, if we win, we get more, right? All they can think about is more. And so you do have markers left over on the map, and a few just appeared. There is combat going on in Sumy. Sumy was just hit. So in the last day, as you can see, boom. So there's a huge 12-hour gap in the news yet again. That's why I don't do it early. It just disappears. Explosions in Odessa 2 hours ago. But this marker, yeah. Here we go, 138, yeah. See? Cheesing me off again. It's all over the place too. It's not even consistently loading. Makes it easy. Makes it hard, doesn't it? But we do know Odessa was hit. We do know this is yesterday. That was yesterday, although there is a today marker as well. There were drones reported. That's yesterday. Again, Ukraine failed to strike. Russia has adapted. Russia has relocated its air defences. Russia's replaced its missing detection systems. Russia's increasing its airborne radar coverage. Now has two A-50s running, where in the past it had one. It had lost one, but that was only temporary. It was only damaged. Ukraine claimed it was destroyed and showed the picture claiming it was destroyed. Turns out that it was AI slop. All propaganda. But yeah, no Russian propaganda. No, Ukraine is... your party is always right, according to the left. The liberal establishment is nothing like classic liberalism. But anyway, even classic liberalism is a tyranny of the experts, where everybody's judged by their university doctrines and educations. Well, ask Thomas Sowell what he thinks of experts, or really any of these. Real genius does not like experts. They don't. All they are is parrots. That is liberalism at its core. Parrots. They can only parrot the narratives. They only like slogans. And they hate the truth. So as we go around the combat map, we do see only a small amount of combat going on in the buffer zone. Lyman, nothing's resulted from Lyman. The Russians are continuing to push with small gains in Druskovia. They haven't really closed the gap here. They're still cleaning it. As I said, it's going to take another... I'm not sure if it's going to take another 2 weeks. I keep saying a month here, but it's now looking longer. It's really slow going, clearing out everything. And they're bogged down in so many areas now. Surprising that they have. They do make advances, but then they get bogged down again. And this might be the map going for the next couple of months with very little changes. And then all of a sudden, you'll get a breakthrough like Zaporozhye, where the Russians have broken through the Ukrainian lines and they are setting up for a siege of Kharkiv. That may start in 2 to 3 weeks, or that might happen tomorrow. These are just probing attacks to expand. I would think the Russians would want to hold off until they get at least within shelling distance of the logistics hub and the crossroads here. They're way behind in here, reclaiming territory they lost in last 12 months. So there is hope for the Ukrainian side to sort of, as now they have to say have successfully defended Kharkiv. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong. Kharkiv before. And same with Tiremu. They have held out before. It's the same with Zaporozhye. The Russians have been closer before and have been pushed back. So I'm well aware that while things look good for Russia now, there are dangers, particularly with logistics in winter. And as well as that, going forward, there's more drones in operation than before. Around 4,000 a month are being purchased by the Ukrainian army. Before I continue, Empire Vels, that's one word, empirevels.myshopify.com, your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. Get yourself a coffee cup. I have a few posters and more merch to come. Yeah, according to Business Insider, the Ukrainians have purchased more than 3,000. Well, in fact, this month they did reach 4,000 ground robots in production. Though, yeah, it's a huge increase over the last 12 months. Month on month, they've had an increase in production, but it's there's a big difference between production and getting equipment to the front line. Ukraine's 40-day campaign has not brought the war to an end. The world is pretty much mostly forgotten. There's a Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow, wild berries. This was to influence Russia into ending the war. It's backfired. It ended with a whimper. Moscow was able to ease its fuel crisis in recent weeks, enhance its air defences at key points. Wildberries has adapted by spreading its logistical hubs out over neighbouring Kazakhstan, and, well, you have missiles from North Korea, more aircraft, you have more ammunition coming out of India, China and Pakistan. You have blunders by NATO, the Ukrainian escalation. They failed to address the strikes on civilian targets. And Ukraine ignored the fact that their own intelligence was telling them that the strikes on Ukrainian targets was turning more people pro-Putin. Putin's popularity went up again. The fuel crisis had Putin in decline. That was temporary. While the first 2 weeks of the campaign seemed successful, the final weeks of the campaign were an utter disaster in that they were hitting rebuilt targets. They burned a few factories to the ground only to watch them rebuild over the next 3 to 5 days. Because most of the time they only burnt, cloves and cardboard boxes. They didn't really destroy much of economic value. And most of these big steel factories, they didn't burn down. They got char grilled. They got some fire damage, some buckling, but huge volunteer armies. People showing up to help the workers. Now, yes, there was a protest by Chinese workers, and payment. It turned out it wasn't Russia. It was China who hadn't paid their workers. Russia had paid the company, but it was the company who hadn't paid the workers. And now Ukraine is struggling to defend itself. Not according to Ukraine, but Al Jazeera and Western experts say Ukraine is now struggling. They're struggling for patriots, even though they've got everything they've wanted given to them. It's another thing defending it and using it wisely and sparingly and using the right weapons on the right job. Not like in the early days of the war, launching patriots at any airborne target. Now, the devastating project and the painful position Ukraine finds itself in is a result of the failure of the 40-day campaign. Now, there are some reforms in Ukraine trying to keep up with the EU transformation, but they're rushing too fast. They're not making enough. They are trying to rush into the European Union, and instead of making arrests, they paper over everything. Instead of talking about economic and political reforms, they're talking about, after the war we can do that. Once we're part of the union, we can do that. No, that's not how joining the EU works. You don't join the EU and magically become a liberal democracy. And it's about time Europe stopped being a liberal democracy and started becoming a bloody protection, a republic that protected the rights of individual states and the citizens of those states, and excluded foreigners from the governments of those states because they all act in foreign interest. Carney's not Canadian, by the way. He's Irish. Someone actually said the other day, there's a lot more foreigners in your government than you realise. A lot of foreign-born people than you realise. Canada. But so many people just want to destroy Russia. And Russia has pushed back. And that's upsetting a lot of military experts. Russia wasn't supposed to bounce back after the massive wave of attacks. They were meant to collapse. Now, shoulder-launched missiles are not the... yes, Chinese shoulder-launched missiles were supposed to fail. Now, these are lightweight. They are cheaply made, but they're working. They only need to kill drones. That's all they need to kill. They're not fighting an open tank war where they have to hit a tank or an armoured vehicle 6 or 7, 8, 9 times. No. But they're getting better at taking out drones with shoulder-launched missiles. Now they've taken Novoe, and here the Russians say is a turning point in the war. Now they're talking about the Su-57 still. It's not ready yet, but we'll see how it performs when it's ready. I would say it's up there probably late 90s to early 2000s aircraft. I think it's not going to... I think this is where we might actually see aerial combat and F-16s over Ukraine challenged by these air combat drones. They are technically piloted aircraft, but they are merely nodes in the network to fly over, try to remain as undetected as possible, to act as a node, a combat node for large combat drones. But they may fly them individually as individual air combat fighters. Now, again, Russia is under attack, and they respond by hitting the same targets that was hit. A steel plant in Kiev and military targets in Zaporozhye. Now, whenever Russia brings video, it's often... it is often taken off Ukrainian feeds. And they watermark it themselves, yeah. But you can see they're using water on electrical and chemical fires. That's how short of that tells you straight away there's a shortage. Nothing really to tell where it is. They are... yeah, but that's a big warehouse fire. You can see, look at the size of it. You're going to tell me they evacuated all 170 pallets in the flight time of a missile? Or you're going to say it was a drone, I tell you. Yeah, but you'd have to know the drone was coming and where it was going to hit. And drones are slow, so even if you had a drone with a 1 hour flight time, you still needed 1 to 3 hours for a drone with a 1 to 3 hour flight time. So you had to start at the same time the drone was launched. So you had to know the drone was launched, where it was launched from, and what it was going to hit. So if someone inside Russia did tell Ukraine, well, you just outed yourselves as knowing and revealing the fact that Ukraine is listening to Russian communications and understands what the orders are. I'm not here to tell you how to fix things. I'm just here to tell you what is happening. I'm not going to educate either side, because I'm pretty sure either side is monitoring every channel that has a hashtag Russia or Ukraine attached to it. And if you tell one, you've always told the other, haven't you? Now, Russian forces, there you go, that's a big loader that's the Master B loader, I think. The big, that's the one with, I think, the 9 meter barrel. There is one with a 13.6 meter barrel that is like massive, and it's nowhere near something like the German Thor, well, or the rail gun, but it is one of the largest land artilleries in service at the moment. Although North Korea does have a few really big ones, I think, but I think from the 170 to the 700, they're all increasing in the accuracy goes up and then it goes down. Around the 120 to 160, 170 is there, and then you got 150s roughly in the middle. Now, some of them are more accurate than others because, but we haven't heard much about the laser-guided artillery or any of the AI-assisted stuff. The only AI-assisted stuff that right now seems to be highly effective is the Night Watch with their twin Zu-23s. They seem to be doing quite okay. But most of the time, AI assist is, just junk. You don't have enough time to... You've got to be really trained to just respond to go, yep, line up the 2 circles and fire. Don't think, don't think about lead or just... But you only got a short period of time. So this is where training and adaptation come through. That's why, even though the Russians have flooded the market, well, the battlefield, with a lot of weaponry, a lot of it is untrained, and they're still working out the kinks and how to integrate. Well, the comments and those on paper seem good. It's just that the 1-2 knockout that is required to kill a tank is at best 50-50 and often side on. The 120mm, 22mm rocket, you're better off with saturation of an area than trying to be clever or fancy. And with artillery, it's better off just pounding and the laser guided, you could have fired 14 shots and still get the same effect cheaper. And of course, with the laser guided artillery, you have to have a drone overhead in place, locked on the target, and you lose that feed, the shell just goes on. It doesn't arc down until it's too late. So there are a lot of variables on the battlefield that are still being worked out, and that's why you keep seeing Russia cycle back to some of its old equipment, because simple field training, the bang for buck is there in tried and true technologies. That does not mean they will keep evolving or changing. Like the Zircon here, the Zircon is being one of the more successful, although they've had a lot of success with the Calibre with high-speed penetration to set off, because the Calibre they use, mostly the Calibre 21, it's an interdiction missile. It goes in fast and blares a lot of electronics so that air defences light up, and so that that information can be relayed back to other missiles like the Zircon so that they can avoid ahead of time the current air defense situation. Again, that's why you should not light up all your air defences at once when you see the first point of contact. Should be very selective and understand that the Russians, you assume they know where you are. Always assume that. And work on the fact that you learn their launch patterns and stop anticipating them, because when you fall into that rhythm, which I should not be talking about, but hey, let's just be honest, Ukraine falls into that rhythm and Russians go, yep, we'll keep feeding them for the next couple of days, that rhythm, and then bam, we'll change it. And because they're anticipating that attack, some other place goes up in smoke, and then they say, ah, mamma mia, egg on my face. And again, that's because they're not paying attention to the battlefield, right? They are falling time and time again for Russians sneaking in under fog and all these other problems they have with the Russians. Now, various institutes have put out severe strategic warnings and a humanity crisis warning for late 2026. Winter is expected to be ranging from minus 4.8 Celsius to 2 degrees Celsius, with extreme drops of minus 20 coming through February next year. Long-range weather patterns have indicated on the lower end of the average for Ukraine, with higher frost and higher variable snow cover anticipated across both central and eastern regions during the peak months of late January through to late February, early March. With a bigger snowfall comes a longer, muddier thaw for March, April, May, which will bog down machines like they did last year and this year, leading to a much slower war, which was not anticipated. Russia built its war plans on 3 cycles of war by initially 3 armies, then became 5, and now is 6, with the 6 being the battle group in the Kursk region, right? Or Kursk/Sumy conflict there. You've seen where they opened up a new front. Yes, I know it's not a new front, but it's technically a change. So, sustained for the long term, we're going to see exploitation of Ukrainians' air defences to target thermal power plants. Because the power plants, there's nothing stopping the missile. The missile, once it's in terminal flight, there's nothing to stop it. They do not have adequate air defences to stop these missiles. They have to get lucky with gun strikes. They need, I shouldn't be saying this, but because they know what they need, they're just not getting it. And they're not getting it because they focus too much on their long-range influence campaigns of bloody nose strikes on Russia, poking the bear and then laughing about it, thinking that it would provoke them into giving up. Where did they get that psychological allowance from? Who knows? Putin's not known for giving up, is he? Well, he sort of gave up on Syria, but that's because he did not want to confront both Europe, America, Israel, and lose support in half the Middle East to try and hold Syria, when even their own allies were saying Assad has gone too far. Yeah. Now, will Ukraine be able to sustain gas production and then sustain its logistics networks? Because it has and will sacrifice humanitarian aid to sustain its winter campaign. going into this winter, we are likely not to see a Russian campaign, but an attempt by Ukraine to take advantage of Russia having dug in previously. I believe that's a mistake. I think Russia has lured you into that belief. But it's not too late to be cautious, because the only way to know it's a trap is to spring the trap and then deal with the trap. And it should be obvious in places that it's a trap, like Koshnikovia, like Lyman, like all the other cauldrons, where there's big open areas flanked into the Russians, and you think, strike at the heart, kill the beast, you know? No, cauldrons are only defeated by angular attacks on the actual cauldron, on the cauldron rim, to take it down like that. You don't take it flat head on. You literally have to have two columns simultaneously from different directions, because you split the middle and you collapse it down, because the cauldrons tend to overextend to flank a town. I'm sure Russia has field-tested an AI analysis of that. This is just me musing, believe me or not, but Ukraine has a chance of wearing down those cauldrons if they do rim attacks. I've said so often, they know what to do. There's no point in me pointing it out. But people go, well, you don't know nothing, Dave. You don't know nothing. Well, I do know the Russians have increased zircon production. That they're producing stockpiling ONSKs. And I warned you that there's a possibility of a ONSK offensive where they just take the 10 or 20 or even 30 they've got, divide them up between certain concentrated targets, and go, Zelensky, you're going to surrender. Live on TV. Zelensky, you're going to surrender. Give it up. Here's our list of demands. No. Wait for his answer. And then they go, pop. 3 hours later, they show the results of the attack. And then say, and then the next day, Zelensky, you're going to surrender? No. Pop. And they'll do that 20, 30 times. And but of course that does put them at depletion. So they're probably going to space it even more. Use one every few months. And that's where I think we're at. So next month, will we see an ONSK attack? If they've decided to go with an ONSK offensive, it's either going to be regular or irregular. And it looks to be irregular. So every few months, they're going to hit them with a really big one. So we are due for a really big attack. But they're not going to be predictable about it, because Russia has lured Ukraine into that comfort of using AI to find and predict patterns. And then once they have, Russia watches them anticipate their attacks, and they do it differently, even if it's detrimental to their short-term goals. It is positive to their long-term goals. Always look at it split between long-term and short-term, please. In the short term, the strikes of the Ukraine war economy slows down Ukraine, but will not wear down the resolve. The long term is unpredictable attacks will destabilize them. Smaller, shorter, sharper attacks constantly, and then they go away, and as they start to feel relief, big bombing, destabilization, economically destabilizing for regions, will have those regions abandoned by people. They won't come back because they'll fear another really big attack. And then you start to see eastern Ukraine crumble because the military in Ukraine really relies on the volunteers. And I know it's cruel, and it may sound like I'm giving the Russians ideas. No, I am giving you warnings. The Russians don't need any advice. They know what they're doing. I'm warning you what their possible planning is based on the fact they are unpredictable. So what would I do if I had Ukraine in a corner, but knowing if I go straight in, I'm going to get gut punched? So what do? I feign. He gets ready to gut punch me. Ukraine has got a great gut punch. So, as I go in, I just switched my haymaker and catch him side on because he's come to gut punch me over here, but I've not come over here. I've only started to pivot, and he's anticipating my attack, so he's pivoted and gone to step in for that gut punch. So, bang, his cheek is exposed. It's what I'm trying to tell you each and every time. Russia is going for a flank. And this is where their cauldrons are most vulnerable, is the rim. The rim. The rim. Look at the points on the rim. Bang. Bang. You come at it at an angle, so you're not taking on this, you're only taking on that. You come at it there at that angle. You look at the angle and come on at that angle, You don't give them much to shoot at. You hit and run them on the rim. And that asymmetrical warfare slows down the Russians even more. And if we start seeing those, you're welcome. But will we see Ukraine adopt such asymmetric tactics? I think so. I think they realise that they do have to do something different. They've probably got more than one plan anyway, and I'm not taking credit if they do. I'm just saying that is what is most likely needed right now. But that doesn't... I'm talking about their attack army here. I'm not talking about their regular territorial guard or their entrenched men. I'm not talking about taking men off the front line. I'm talking about those attack forces that they're building up, having ready, having tested the Russians in Zaporozhye already, got beaten, lost a bit of territory, and instead of a defensive action, they should do a special forces strike, offensive actions along the front at random in two places on cauldrons on the rim, so that the Russians can't respond to one. They have to respond to two small, mobile, fast forces who are most likely backed by drones and missiles. So if anything big comes out, any concentration of Russians in response is immediately countered. And of course that requires coordination and training, but I'm pretty sure rapid deployment forces in the Ukrainian special forces and their night attacks could easily do this without threatening the security and safety of Ukraine. But the goal for Ukraine would not allow it, because these hit and run attacks will only stop advances. They won't push them back. They just kill momentum and stop advances and force men to dig in and defend their positions. And then they have to spread out, which destabilizes the cauldron and stops and then they have to bring all their men and all their equipment and start reinforcing other positions. That takes more men off their offensive army into the defensive army and does lead to a stalemate. That's probably why they haven't done it. So that's the state of the Ukraine war. Now, before I go, I would like your support, please. I can't bring you all the news because I would need to subscribe to something like Ground News and get a lot more news from paid sources. I can't do that on less than minimum wage. I need your financial support to grow this channel. Computers aren't cheap. I am in debt. So I want to bring and of course I wanted to bring my empire to life. So the Empire of Elves Not Suitable for Work art book, volume 1, featuring Sora. I'll be posting links soon, probably tomorrow, to some artwork. Now, they do require adult verification, but they're free to look at, and you can get some previews for free probably tomorrow. Hopefully, I will be able to give you better understanding of the Empire of Elves Not Suitable for Work art book. I just can't show you too much. But thank you. Thank you to all those who do support the channel. Thank you to all those who watch all the video and not just the first 2 seconds and make up their mind. Because they don't hear what they want to hear. They don't want to hear, they want to be told what good little boys they are and that they're all right and always right. Isn't that right, Mummy? I'm a good boy, Mummy. That's every liberal ever. You like to support the channel. You want me to bring you bigger, better, bolder news then let's face it. Do you want to pay for it? Or you want to pay a small amount every month collectively so that I can bring it to you? And heck, hell yeah, I'll cover more topics and other stuff. You know, I'll branch out. I'll do longer videos. I'll do what it takes to earn your money, but without feedback and proper direction. All I get is, so far, the trolls who are scaring people off, and you shouldn't let back down because of the liberal trolls. They're never going to pay your bills. They're never going to make the world a better place. Name a point in history they've made the world a better place. No, hundreds of years later, someone else has. All they do is destroy. Look at communist China, Cuba, Venezuela. All liberals do is destroy. Liberals destroyed Iran. So, Ko-Fi, Patreon, my RPG and my writing Patreon. My writing Patreon's where I'll be posting some pictures for the Empire of Elves Not Suitable for Artwork. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.